biological ecosystem is defined as a biological community of interacting organisms and their physical environment. Producers in the ecosystem are at the start of the food chain because they are plants which can make their own food by photosynthesizing with energy from the sun and carbon dioxide in the air. The primary consumers are the first to consume something in the food chain, and it is always the producer, with the secondary consumer consuming the primary consumer, the tertiary consuming the secondary, and etc. The final consumer, sometimes called the apex predator, is at the top of the food chain and cannot be consumed by anything else, only consuming what is below it in the food chain until it dies and is decomposed by microorganisms. Nutrient cycling is a key concept and continually occurs, as for example, when an organism dies, it is decomposed into nutrients for other future organisms to use and grow, and in effect, a cycle perseveres. Organisms become litter when they die and decompose into the soil as nutrients for future plants to use for growth and continuing the cycle. There are external factors too, however, since there are some nutrients in the parent rocks which are weathered and feed into the soil, and rainfall overall helps to facilitate the continuation of the cycle. The other external factors include the surface runoff of nutrients from the litter as a consequence of the rainfall, and some further nutrients are lost in leaching due to the irrigation in agriculture or extended rainfall. An example of a small-scale UK ecosystem to illustrate the concept of interrelationships within a natural system is the lake in Avington Park, as well as a study of its restoration. Due to a lack of maintenance, there was a buildup of silt which helped to build up an overgrowth of vegetation. These were the producers in the ecosystem as they produced their own food through sunlight. This led to an influx of birds as there was now a good habitat for them, with many plants encouraging more insects and other prey that birds could consume as consumers. You could also mention about decomposers, as due to the increase in vegetation, there were more bacterial decomposers which decomposed the plants when they died as they respire off dead biological matter. An example of a food chain here would be the increase in caterpillars and beetles which thrived off the increase of vegetation as primary consumers, and then being eaten by birds like wrens and sparrows as secondary consumers. An example of a food web here would be how the insects mentioned before could be eaten by many birds, and then each of the many birds would be consumed by different tertiary predators like snakes, owls, or weasels. These interactions link in multiple different ways, which is why it is called a web. An ecosystem relies on an approximate balance between the subjects discussed before, because if one changes drastically, for example primary consumer A is completely eradicated, the whole food chain will change, as there will be more producers available with less secondary consumers, as they don't have as many options for food, and therefore some are naturally starved to decrease the population. Finally, for Avington Park, after the restoration where the lake was desilted and reshaped, more nesting birds came in, as well as waterfowl. A general overview of the distribution and characteristics of large-scale natural global ecosystems can be summarized with the included map. The tropical rainforest is a very hot and wet biome located on or around the equator. It has the greatest biodiversity, number of plants and animals, found anywhere on Earth. The savanna is a dry and hot area, composed of mainly grassland, scattered shrubs, and isolated trees, which can be found between a tropical rainforest and desert biome in Africa, Arabia, and even Australia. The desert biome is very, very dry, as it is defined as a biome with less than 250 millimeters of rainfall annually. As a result of this, very little grows. Only very hardy plants can survive. Examples of a desert include Antarctica or the Sahara. The polar, Arctic, and alpine tundra. This biome covers a fifth of land on Earth. There is very little precipitation, a short growing season, and poor nutrients. It is below freezing at night year-round. The Chaparral. This biome is found in small areas on most continents, like the west coast of the US and the Cape Town area of South Africa. The biome has flat plains, rocky hills, and mountain slopes. It is very hot and dry. The winter is very mild at 10 degrees Celsius, and the summer is so hot and dry at 40 degrees Celsius that fires and droughts are common. The grassland. A large biome with rolling terrains of grasses, flowers, and herbs. It is a region where the average annual precipitation is great enough to support grasses, and in some areas a few trees. The deciduous forest. This biome has few extremes of climate. The forest has 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. In autumn, the leaves change colour, and in winter, they are shed by the tree. The Boreal forest. Also known as the taiga, this biome is a northern coniferous forest. It is a cold woodland found north of deciduous forests. It is the largest biome, covering around 17% of the Earth and can be found in Europe, Asia, and the US.